2 days before Christmas in 1996, the remote village of Skull in West Cork was rocked by the brutal murder of French filmmaker Sophie Toscan Du Plantier. The 39-year-old mother was bludgeoned to death in a lane near her holiday home, this isolated cottage nestled in a rugged hillside. The brutal killing was splashed across papers around the world as the media descended on this windswept village on the edge of Europe. But there was one journalist who didn't have to travel far at all: Ian Bailey. In a plot worthy of Hollywood, the hack sent to cover the murder would later become its chief suspect. Now the enduring mystery of Sophie's murder may be about to take a fresh turn. The Irish police have completed a preliminary cold case review into the murder and are now considering opening a full-scale re-investigation. It's something Bailey has called for and would welcome. I went to West Cork to meet Bailey, to find out about his life and ask him this question.
Ian, did you murder Sophie Toscan Du Plantier?
So my name is Ian Kenneth Bailey. I'm 65 this coming January, and I was born in Manchester back in 1957. Grew up in Stockport, and then moved down to Gloucestershire. I went to school there, and then I was writing. I loved English, poetry, and I actually started my journalistic career while I was at school, actually writing rugby reports and play reports just for the local newspaper. And over the years I covered various things, including the GCHQ Jeffrey Prime spying scandal. I also did diary jobs, I did court work, local council meetings, and royal. Most of my friends in London were Irish, and I had a great love of Irish culture and poetry and music in particular. And I just got more and more friends over here. And then eventually I thought, well, actually, I'm tired of London. I'm tired of the rat race. I moved over here in 1991. So I was doing various jobs, and then I went full-time, back to full-time freelance journalism in 1996. I'd been sort of building up, and my confidence was growing. I was learning a bit of Irish. And then, so that brings us up to, the Christmas of 1996. A lady who had a holiday home here, who travelled from France, was found very savagely murdered on a very isolated, we call them borings, like a country track, not that far from where I lived, maybe 3 or 4 miles. And I had a call from the media alerting me, and I went out and I located the scene and started to report on it. And I was the lead reporter. I was dealing with French journalists, people from London, BBC, Telegraph, and people from France. And then on February I think it was February the 10th, might have been the 11th of 1997, I was going about my business, and I was arrested and accused of the murder. And thus then began really what's been a 25-year living nightmare.
Sophie's family and friends, led by son Pierre-Louis, are adamant Manchester-born Bailey had blood on his hands. Bailey was arrested twice for the murder, but never charged. The DPP ruled there was insufficient evidence against him. He has always vehemently denied any involvement with Sophie's killing. In 2019, Bailey was convicted in France in absentia of her murder and sentenced to 25 years. Much of the evidence was based on hearsay, as no DNA linking Bailey to the crime has ever been found. On 3 occasions, Irish courts have denied attempts by the French authorities to extradite him to serve the sentence.
So let's look at some of the evidence that people hold against you. The scratches. Now, the police actually did drawings of scratches on your arms and on your forehead.
Right, well, there wasn't any scratch on my forehead. I had a little nick on the top of my head, which was actually in my hair, so it wasn't visible, and that was from a turkey, which I'd slaughtered on the Sunday before the crime was discovered on the Monday. I also saw the top of a Christmas tree, which I drew down through the tree, and I got some light markings on my arms from that. But it was all very. I know the drawing you're talking about. It was obviously done. It looked like it was done by a child artist, very, very amateurish.
Irish police said you changed your story about where you were the night. You said that you were in bed with your wife, and then you went to the studio. You later admitted to being at the studio. How do you explain that?
Well, the thing is, right, so we went home. We'd been out on the Sunday night for music. We went home. I had a story to write. This might sound rather convoluted, but it's true. To write and deliver to the Sunday Tribune about internet. Now, I hadn't finished writing it, and it was on my mind that I had to have it pretty well together by the Monday morning. So during the night, I got up and I stayed in the Prairie cottage, went down to the table and wrote my story, and then went back to bed. And it was only in the morning, between 9 and 10, that I left the cottage and went down to the studio house. So, I mean, the thing about Christmas, and I don't know if you know, I noticed it this year. There was a little thing on, it was like, who wants to be a millionaire? And it was like the big question now for a million. Think about it carefully. What day is it? And the person goes, I've got no idea. You like Christmas is always like that. It's the sort of, and you ask people what they were doing yesterday. So there were a few anomalies that I would describe them as anomalies in what I told the guards. But it wasn't anything deliberate, and it was made out to be.
A number of local witnesses would later come forward to allege Bailey confessed to the murder.
Reporters have dark senses of humour, we know that. But they don't normally admit to murder.
Well, I've never, if you look at the DPP's critique, he refers to the alleged informal admissions, and he actually says in the report that there were not admissions at all. They were clearly indicative of my dark sense of humour and actually were more probative of my innocence.
Richie Shelley, one of the witnesses, said you were crying and said, I did it, I went too far.
No, that was a very drunken evening. I remember exactly what I said. I said the guards said, I did it, I did it, I did it, I went too far. And he then, I think, some 9 months after a Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve event, made a report to the guards. I think 9 months.
And the young boy in the car, you turned around and said, you smashed her effing brains in.
What I said to him was, Malachy, everything was going very well until people started putting the rumour around that I'd gone up there and smashed her brains out. And there was a rumour I had been hearing before my arrest. This sort of, I've always described it as a dirty, rotten, stinking lie, because that's what it is.
2 recent documentaries on Netflix and Sky have brought the case to new audiences and turned the spotlight back on Bailey.
Last year was one hell of a roller coaster. It was like being tied to the back of an out-of-control bucking bronco. For months, my life was just thrown into complete upheaval. I mean, not only did the 2 documentaries come out, but earlier in the year, my long-term partner, Jules, had informed me that, in fact, our journey was over, and she wanted me out of her house, and I had to start to find alternative accommodation, and that's very difficult. So I had that going on. Then I got a foot infection. Then my Achilles heel went. And then the 2 documentaries came out, and it was, I didn't even know how I was going to get through it at certain points.
Why did she finally...
I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask her that. I don't know. I mean, we never really spoke about it. I just asked her if her decision was irrevocable, and she said yes, it was. And therefore I knew I had to launch what I called Operation Vacate and Relocate.
Another thing that's raised against you is obviously you beat Jules up pretty badly 3 times. The pictures are graphic.
Yeah, I know.
Not great to look at.
No, I know. It's to my eternal shame. And we'd both had drink taken. That's no excuse, but it was the situation. It's to my eternal shame.
And you wrote in your diary that there was used against you, saying, "I feel sick reading about those events, beating her up. I really wanted to kill her."
I don't think I ever said that.
I think it was a diary entry there.
I don't think I ever said that, and I've never seen that. They took my diaries away. I do a draft poem.
The 64-year-old insists that, for the most part, the attention he receives is positive.
How do locals treat you? I mean, do they treat you like a pariah? Or?
No. I mean, with 1 or 2 except every now and again there's a fecker, and actually it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. I've got a poem in the book called Feckers. You'll bump into somebody. There'll be somebody. But 99% of the time, 99% of the people are absolutely grand altogether. And I get a lot of support from them. In the summer of last year, it turned into a almost farcical. I had to keep a very low profile. I was trying to do markets, but when I did markets, I almost got mobbed in a friendly fashion. And some traders weren't very happy because I was receiving too much attention. People were travelling down to try to see me and meet me, and I'd pop up in the market and then I'd be gone.
Bailey now has a new woman in his life, County Mayo hat maker Ethna Staunton, who is almost 20 years his junior.
Yes, well, Miss Staunton, the Rose of Mayo. Yeah, I met a beautiful lady, Irish lady, and she's absolutely lovely and witty and wonderful. And we get together when we can.
Well, how did you meet her?
Well, she met me, really. She sort of tracked me down.
Because of your notoriety? Or?
Yeah, well, I think she'd followed my story, and I think she felt quite sympathetic towards me, and she just appeared in my life one day, and we kept in touch, and we get on really well together. We make each other laugh, which is great, apart from other things.
You've made tentative steps into the social media world.
Tentative steps. I was a social media virgin until I think it was May or June this year, and somebody set me up on Instagram, Facebook, and my God.
And you come up with this memorable quote, big-breasted women were contacting you.
Well, when I got on Facebook, big-breasted ladies who wanted to become my bosom buddies.
So you've become an unlikely sex symbol then?
I don't know. I find it very hard to... Look, I don't know, but it was funny. And it was quite innocent as well.
The journalist is currently hawking his memoirs to publishers and preparing for an online poetry reading next week. He's a man who appears to enjoy dealing with the publicity that surrounds his infamy. But is he a killer?
One last question, which is to put on the record.
Yeah.
Ian, did you murder Sophie Toscan Du Plantier?
No.